Hey, it's the first video for Men We Reaped. Welcome to this unit. I'm thrilled to introduce you to the author Jesmyn Ward. As you're watching the video, the question I want you to have in your mind is, who is Jesmyn Ward and what is her book, Men We Reaped, about? First of all, let me talk to you about the plan for the next two units because they connect, all right? First of all, with this unit, we're reading the book, we're discussing on target deadline days, taking mastery checks, all that good stuff that we've done in the past. And at the end of the unit, we will be doing a discussion summative assessment. So we have a mid-unit summative and then an end of the unit discussion. You will, however, be writing an essay about the book, but it won't be until after we finish Unit 7. Unit 7 is a book of short stories called Out There Screaming. It's edited by Jordan Peele. They're horror stories. And what we're going to do after we finish the two texts is we're going to write a compare-contrast essay, and it's going to be in a timed test situation as well, where you write it in class, but you'll have it prepared ahead of time. And so we're not writing about Men We Reaped until after, or at the end of, I should say, Unit 7. So keep that in mind. We're not writing about Men We Reaped now, but we will later. Here's how it's going to work. For Unit 6, we have 5 mastery checks, a 25-point packet. Those are all in formative. It will all be scored formatively. And then we have, for the summative assessments, the mid-unit summative, another 50 points like we always do. And then we're going to do that whole class discussion as an end of the unit summative assessment. And I'll explain that in a detailed way as we get closer to it. We are going to do discussion on target deadline days. I'm calling it disco for this unit because of these lovely animals that are discoing. And after we read the short stories in Out There Screaming, we are going to write a 1,000-word literary compare-contrast essay on the two works, focusing on similar themes that are in the stories that we read in this collection, as well as in the memoir by Jesmyn Ward. So all of this information is from the syllabus. I just copied and pasted it here. So the compare-contrast essay, you're going to focus on some similarities and differences as you compare the two works. And like I said, we'll focus on theme, and then of course I'm going to make you write about some literary aspects as well. Okay, let's talk about the four main literary genres or forms. These are the broad strokes. These are the big categories. The first one is poetry, and of course we just spent a unit working on poetry. The second is prose nonfiction. Nonfiction is true, right? Nonfiction is not made up, but based on truth, or maybe even more than based. It's supposed to be the truth, right? 3 is prose fiction. So this is stories that are made up, stories that might be based on the truth, but go beyond that. So the 2 books that we read first semester were both prose fiction. And then the 4th is drama. And of course, that's where we started our year with the play Medea. So you can see that we've hit 3 of the 4 genres or forms. We have to still hit this 4th one, prose nonfiction, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing with Men We Reaped. Men We Reaped is nonfiction. Specifically, it is a memoir. Now, memoir is a type of autobiographical writing. It's a narrative written from the perspective of the author about an important part of their life. But instead of it telling the entire life story of someone, it focuses on a certain time period. Some things that are important to know about memoir and how memoirs are written are that even though the memoir is autobiographical writing, and includes facts of the event, the author has a bit more flexibility than in other forms of nonfiction writing to tell the story as she remembers it, not as others can prove or disprove it. The facts about the young men, for example, who Ward writes about in this book are true. They have not been changed. Their names, their birth dates, their death dates. But the events are recreated in a way that couldn't possibly be exactly what happened, because she includes things like dialogue and what people were wearing and things like that she has to remember as she thinks it most likely took place, and in a way to recreate the feelings that she had as she experienced the events for the reader. Now, the central event, the limited span and focus in her book, is limited to the central event of the violent deaths of 5 young men who she was very close to in the span of only 4 years. She will explain in the first chapter of the book, the prologue, however, that in order for her to tell that story about those 5 young men, she also has to include her own experience growing up in DeLisle, Mississippi, as well as those who came before her. She'll include a lot of background, especially in that first reading, and then she'll go on to tell the story in 2 narrative timelines, one of her growing up and one of her remembering the deaths of the 5 men. The book was published in 2013. Here's a picture of what Jesmyn Ward looked like in 2013. Here's a picture of what she looked like in 2023 when I got to meet her at the University of Minnesota when she was touring for her novel, Let Us Descend. And I just wanted to tell you what it was like to meet her. I just was really struck by how authentic she seemed. You know, she didn't seem like a superstar celebrity kind of person, and her generosity of time was really sweet. She posed, for this picture. She also, I asked her if she would sign it to Cooper Geniuses, and she asked for help spelling the word geniuses, which endeared her to me forever, because I too am not a great speller, and it was just delightful. So she's definitely one of my writing heroes, I would say, and I'm really excited to share her book with you. She is also highly acclaimed. She is the only woman to have won the National Book Award twice. She's also the only African American writer to have won the National Book Award twice. This is a huge deal. The National Book Award is the highest award our country gives our writers, and she won it once in 2011 for the novel Salvage the Bones, and once in 2017 for the novel Sing Unburied Sing. Both of these are novels. They're fiction. They're works of fiction. And we are reading instead her work of nonfiction, her memoir, which she published in between these 2 books in 2013. And she, the book focuses on the 5 young men from her hometown of DeLisle, Mississippi, who die within 4 years. And she says in the book that the underlying cause of their deaths was a self-destructive spiral born of hopelessness. Reviewer Dominique Nicole Swan, writing in World Literature Today, said, in giving voice to these young men who can't speak, Ward certainly compels readers to listen. And that's what I hope that you will do. You will listen to her story with an open heart and an open mind. She says that it's because of this tragedy that she became a writer, that it was the story that she had to tell. And that's what propelled her forward. It's what she was working on when she then switched to write this novel, for which she won the National Book Award. She then publishes the memoir, and then she wins the National Book Award again with her next work. A little bit about DeLille. This is how you pronounce it. Think of the word little. Lil. DeLille. It is a Gulf town in Mississippi, so it's on the Gulf of Mexico here, not far from New Orleans. And in fact, Ward lives in New Orleans, works in New Orleans. Now, she still lives in DeLille. And she teaches at Tulane University in New Orleans, and she said it's about a 40-minute drive. So just to kind of, think about where it is in space, now you have a little bit of a better idea of where it is. New Orleans, though, is the big city, and DeLille is not. It is a tiny, sleepy town full of inhabitants who have tons of history. Generations after generations after generations of DeLille, or of Ward's ancestors have lived in DeLille. And she'll talk about that at the beginning of the book. I have to warn you that we have some tough topics to discuss. And whenever I do that with a class, I am reminded of this quote from James Baldwin, author and civil rights activist, who said, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And I sometimes think that we need to be more courageous in facing the problems of our world, because we don't have to settle for things the way they are. Things can be better, but we have to face some of this tough stuff first. So I'm hoping that we will do this together courageously, and I'll give you guys some specific protocol that we'll use in class to help us deal with the difficult topics that Ward raises in her memoir. I also included some trigger warnings in the packet so that you can prepare for those tough moments as you read. And know that, we have some tough content ahead of us with this book. All right, thanks for listening and taking notes. I look forward to talking to you about the first 41 pages soon.